Hello and welcome to the SE25 Cast. Today we talk about Palace's 1-1 draw with West Ham, new arrival Alexander Sørloth, and the hosts get very angry about the lack of transfer activity.
Good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are. This is SE25 Cast, or the SE25 Cast if you're Alex. Podcast number 3 of the Crystal Palace subreddit. We're here to discuss some doom and gloom. We're here to discuss light at the end of the tunnel. We're here to discuss West Ham, the match that both sides probably wished wasn't. We're here to decide, or we're here to talk about the transfer window, which again, some of us probably hope, or probably rather would have preferred didn't happen. And then we're here to talk about Newcastle. That hasn't happened yet, so it's going to be exciting to talk about that because we haven't fucked it up yet. Okay, I have with me somebody whose nickname is God on the Palace Discord. If you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself.
Yes, so I'm Alex. I'm one of the moderators on the sub and the Discord. Hello.
We've actually got somewhat of a coup with one of our guests. We've got somebody who's in the know. Panda, go ahead, tell us all about yourself.
My name's Panda Mates. You'll regularly find me on the soccer sub if you're on Reddit. But I'm also on the Discord where Palace ITK have some info inside the club.
Okay, nobody believes you, not even your own mother.
Take that back.
And then we have a nice gentleman from, it's not really a foreign country, but he's at least nearly as foreign as our new signings. And he actually speaks better English than two of them, which is a result. Neocas.
But I don't speak better English than Sørloth, our new signing.
No, that bloke speaks better English than I do. He may speak better English than the Queen.
Potentially. Also, I was on the first pod, and it's since rebranded.
Yeah, and you haven't rebranded yourself. You're still just Neocas.
I'm always going to be me.
Authentic. You're authentic and original. Okay. I don't think there's any reason to dither. I wasted 97 minutes of my life watching the West Ham game. So did a couple of you. What did you think, Neocas?
Well, it's good for Benteke to get on the score sheets, obviously, because he's been lacking, for lack of a better word. The penalty, Tompkins had to go in for the challenge. It's a bit of a soft one. You can't really leave your leg trailing. Hernandez is always going to go down there if you give him the opportunity. And Hennessy can't save for shit, so it was always going to be a goal. But we don't have really anything on the bench creatively to try and go and attack the game anymore because half the team is dead, really.
Yeah, it was, from my part, I don't think I have a huge amount to disagree with what you're saying. I think the only other takeaway for me was the Sacco injury. What did you think about that, Alex?
It's obviously a disappointment. Because do we know how long he's out for?
A while, apparently. Roy's come out saying he's probably going to be injured for a couple of weeks, at least.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be, a month and a half, really, before he gets back. He just leaves us thin, really. What are we going to do now? Have Zaha up front again? We're missing Loftus-Cheek, so who's going to fill in on the left or the right side of the midfield? Kabay can barely last a game, which he wasn't.
He came on in
West Ham.
He came in the 41st minute, and by the 60th, he looked fucked.
Yeah, he was so slow. He's just out of it now, to be honest.
Yeah, Kabay is perhaps becoming our Mark Noble. We're better when he's on the pitch, but for some reason, when you watch the games, you find yourself kind of watching him breathe out of his arse, and he just goes around kind of hugging people from the other team, trying not to get Palace players booked. He seems really committed and he's trying very hard, but he clearly needs a big break.
Yes.
By break, I mean a rest. He needs an extended rest and then to come back revitalised, almost having done like a kind of pre-season or something. It's hard.
That, or he needs to be a few years younger, because his age is now starting to get to him, I'd say. It's not just fitness.
Well, he's currently 32.
Yeah, and
For a midfielder, that's donkey's old.
and I think that's it. I think as someone box to box, he's and
Run his course.
yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see over the next few weeks, or certainly the next couple of months. He's one of these players that we're going to get to kind of at the end of the transfer window discussion. He's out of contract in the summer. He's one of our marquee players. He's also on pretty big money for us. We're not talking about the game, but I do think it's interesting with Kabay that, would Steve Parish really put his hand in his pocket? I think he'd probably be under more pressure to do it if Pardew was still here. But did anybody? I would say anybody. Panda didn't watch the game, so I'm just going to gloss over you entirely here. But,
Thanks.
And he calls himself a fan.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah, this an opportunity to go to the Olympic Stadium. Your tax money's already paid for your seat, basically, and you couldn't be asked. I do think that for me there are a couple of players who I thought were actually not too bad. I felt that the game as itself was pretty rubbish. Neither team really put their foot on the ball and did very much. I thought Townsend, his work rate was as good as usual. He was a little bit ineffective, which maybe isn't a surprise.
Well, he got the assist for the goal.
Yeah, which was really nice, and it was his right foot as well.
Yeah, it was very good. He was also he put in a couple good shots, and he was always running. So there's two other players that I'd like to mention. That's Luca and Tompkins. Both of them looked up for it, but they both got booked quite early on, which hampered them quite a bit. Luca in 3 minutes, was it?
Yeah, I mean, he'd barely broken a sweat. The other player I thought was noteworthy for their contribution was actually Martin Kelly. I didn't think he was bad. He's invariably coming in for criticism, and I didn't think he was too bad. And Hernandez is a difficult player to play against. He's not perhaps the most wily. He's not perhaps the fastest. But in terms of fox in the box, it was a wet night. We weren't good at keeping the ball. That's a real Hernandez kind of handful of a night, and I thought he was pretty good.
He was, but every time Kelly has to come in at centre back, he does well when he comes in. It's just I don't think he's good enough to be a constant first teamer.
I don't think it's good enough to come back in, to be honest, from the bench. Well, he's been all right recently, but at the same time, I do notice that his positioning is off a bit. He's just a bit slow. For example, like the Burnley game. I know this is obviously West Ham we should be doing, but Burnley game, Tompkins bailed him out a few times because he just couldn't keep up with whoever was running. And again, I noticed that against West Ham a few times as well.
Yeah, Kelly does this thing, and I forget who. Someone picked it up recently. It may have been on the television. Kelly he doesn't often get to the ball first. He'll try and recover a situation, or he seems to have a reasonable understanding with Tompkins, which is good. The one thing that I do think we lack when we play those two, particularly against Dan and Sacco, Dan and Sacco used to, and back in the days when Scott Dan had legs and Sacco was actually fit, they'll bring the ball forwards. Martin Kelly and Tompkins used to get criticised for this at West Ham by Allardyce of all people, but they don't bring the ball forward at their feet. They invariably knock it forward to Luca or whoever's in front of them, and we don't actually pressure West Ham by bringing our defence forwards.
They're very stationary in what they'll do.
Yeah,
like because Sacco already has an assist with Zaha for winning the ball back over the halfway line and then getting the ball through to Zaha for him to slot it home. You don't get that with either Kelly or Tompkins. You'll get it with Dan occasionally, but not to that level.
Yeah, they're more of a play it safe defender, if that makes sense. They rather let the guys in front of them do the hard work whilst they stay at the back rather than going up the pitch.
Which for me, it creates a gap in the channels then between our midfield and our defence because they're not filling it. You've got an opportunity for people like Hernandez to be hanging around, causing us problems.
That's why I think Tompkins and Sacco is such a good partnership, because Sacco will push them forward, and Tompkins will then follow Sacco up the pitch. But if you need someone to be a rock, you have Tompkins there.
I think that sort of suits Sacco because he's more of a erratic defender, if that makes sort of sense. Do you remember during the Chelsea game in the 89th minute?
No.
The back heel when Fabregas and he capitalized on it. But that's the sort of defender he is. He will attack anything and everything. Whereas, obviously, like we were just talking about, Killian Tompkins are just more stationary. That's what you got to appreciate with Sacco. That I think we don't appreciate enough is his willingness and commitment to attack the ball rather than just the man, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think I don't know much about Sacco before he was at PSG, but Sacco plays like a midfielder, the kid who wanted to be a winger or an attacker and somehow was only good enough to be a centre-back. He's really got that passion to drive the game forwards for Palace. And the erratic nature, I think he's just Bolassi's gift to defence. He is the Yannick Bolasie of centre-backs. He wants to be doing tricks.
That's a very good analogy.
Yeah, he's, every time he does a step over, I don't know if you remember, and I'm older than most of you, the Rio Ferdinand step over that created a goal for England. It was god-awful step over. That's what Sacco does every time. And it looks like Bambi on ice skates shitting itself. But it's a thing of beauty to see because he's doing it like how they taught a 5-year-old to do it. But he's got it right, and he invariably gets the half a yard and makes a pass. But fuck me, there must be professionals or coaches watching that thinking, no, really? We pay that man $100,000 a week?
But if it works, don't knock it.
Exactly.
And it does work when he's on.
It doesn't always work, though, because it is how we got injured.
I'm still blaming the pitch for that. I'm still convinced.
Yeah, same.
It's mostly the pitch, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still convinced there's something to do with... no one off the sub has volunteered to do the research that I refuse to do, and I will get to it at some point, but I'm convinced there's an issue with our pitch. Anyway, I think...
Didn't we have an issue with our pitch a couple of years ago in the Pulis? It wouldn't settle. It kept digging up. And we got reported by nearly every Premier League club that played at our ground because our pitch was horrible.
Yeah, and it's funny. That's exactly the problem I have with it, is because they then invested in a better pitch that has like a synthetic layer at the bottom. And for people listening now who don't want to listen to the pitch podcast, feel free to forward like 30 seconds. But they laid a semi-synthetic layer. Palace, it cost us about another $1 million or something like that. Huge amount of money. But basically, we've now got the base layer is artificial and it weaves into the grass, so the pitch doesn't tear up in the same way. There's a quite clever video somewhere on the Palace website. Alex will link to it in the pod description, I'm sure. Okay, luckily we haven't actually talked about the West Ham game much, but I feel as if we've already done it to death because we had to watch it. Are we ready to move on to...
No, not yet.
Go on.
Couple things. So, MacArthur. I've been disappointed in the last few games because it's kind of been a waste of space, as harsh as that sounds. He's just not doing anything, really.
He runs about, but he hasn't really done anything
other
than run about.
And he runs about slowly as well, so he's not really pressuring anyone. They can just pass the ball away from him quickly.
I think a big part of that is due to his injury he's had. He's got back spasms or had a massive back injury. And I remember he was on the sidelines for a prolonged amount of time. So perhaps that played a massive part in him because I knew he was out for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two. So,
doesn't Hennessy also have back spasms?
Yeah, Hennessy missed the West Brom away game because he picked up back spasm problems as well. So, but yeah, like I said, the MacArthur thing could be down to his back problems, perhaps.
It's possible, but then in that case, I'd like to see Gyro come on either for him at half time or start ahead of him. Because I reckon he just offer more throughout the game than what MacArthur's been doing recently.
I'd say that as well, but I think it's an issue not with MacArthur or Gyro, but with Roy, because Roy values experience quite a bit, and I doubt he thinks Gyro is ready for an entire game yet, unless he's forced to play.
Well, he did it against Man City, and you've got to admit, that was pretty impressive.
But that was not due to Roy's choice, really. That was just due to the horrendous amount of injuries we had going into that game. And the fact that everyone needed a rest.
I'm going to venture a slightly impassioned defence of James McArthur that I don't know if it's true or not. I look at the position McArthur's playing as when Cabaye is not on the pitch or when Cabaye is breathing out of his arse. I think James McArthur is being used kind of similar to how he was by Sam at some points at the end of last season to try and actually link up between the attackers and the midfield, because you're absolutely not wrong that he's running about a lot, not making a lot of tackles, not successfully receiving the ball and then recycling it back to our own team. What he is doing is being intentionally in space to be available to receive the ball, and we're not giving it to him. That's one of my, when I watch him play, it's similar to what we often do with Cabaye, is when we put Cabaye in that position of Lucas sat towards the back, Cabaye, because he's French, gets kind of shoved forward a bit, and then invariably they look rubbish because we don't really play those triangles. We don't play into that channel to then move the ball forward. Occasionally when we do, the only person that does it successfully is Loftus-Cheek. And I think that's perhaps because he's better, stronger, more attacking minded. But I don't know what Roy's getting him to do, but I don't disagree he's looking ineffective, but I do disagree rather that it's perhaps McArthur's fault.
It's just more about sorting the issue. I just feel like he's not worth having on the pitch. So I do think we need to replace him for the next couple games, because we need, like for example against Newcastle, we need someone with pace who can actually pass the ball and not just dawdle on the ball, a bit like McArthur was doing against West Ham. He is so slow on the ball trying to pass it and dribble it around. Just kind of slows everything up, really.
Was there any other player you want to talk about, or is this a very good time to talk about the transfer window?
No, not yet. There is another player I want to talk about as well.
Go for it.
Wilf?
Oh, God. Wilfried Zaha.
Yeah.
He's just been a bit disappointing, really, since Burnley. Yes, I can understand against West Ham that he was triple marked and double marked a lot, so he wasn't able to really create anything. But there are a few times when he's just running up the pitch, two people going towards him, and rather than doing a simple pass sideways infield or turning around passing back to an open Van Aanholt, he'll just try and do step overs and run into the two people ahead of him, fall over, moan about it, stay on the floor while they're doing a counter-attack on us. And it happened frequently throughout the West Ham game. And it was just kind of fairly poor throughout, really.
But I don't disagree. I think you are absolutely right. I think, again, he's a player he's a young lad. He loves being loved. He loves being picked up by the crowd, by the manager, by the papers and the plaudits generally in the press and the media. I think he thrives on a lot of that. I think part of the problem we've got with him, and it's not necessarily a Roy-driven problem, but I think he's a right-footed player playing on the left. He's not using his left foot to cross. When he cuts in, he's not often cutting in and finding a pass in the middle. He's cutting in and invariably then trying to put it on the right foot to generate an opportunity for himself. I don't think you're wrong that he's been ineffective, but I do think we've got a young lad who's got the weight of, Selhurst Park on his shoulders a lot of the time. He's probably started to feel it.
It's not just that, because he's had that pressure on him even before the new contract for ages, where he's had to basically take a great game by the scruff of the neck and just drag us through it completely, creating chances out of nothing, doing it all himself. And I think it's just got to the point where that's ingrained in him. He doesn't really know how to do anything other than one-man army it. So it ruins his crossing, his play with others. The only time I've seen him play well around another player this entire season is with Loftus-Cheek. And those two played brilliantly off each other, but as soon as Loftus-Cheek's gone out, Zaha's dropped off a bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think he has been made to be a little more lonely and a little more isolated by the way Benteke plays. Panda, you're the only one that hasn't slated Wilf. Clearly, people know you're more worried about being firebombed, but what's your thought?
I agree in some aspects, but I think we shouldn't have to rely on Wilf in that sense. We should, well, this links to the transfer window, but we shouldn't have to rely on Wolf dragging us out of games. There should be we should be having a 10 to, feed the strikers. It shouldn't constantly have to be relying on a winger, if that makes sense, because he has won us moments of magic up front, but we often know him to dominate on the wings. So if we had perhaps a better number 10 to feed the strikers, the wingers, we would see an improvement on him. And I agree that I feel he is feeling the pressure of carrying the team. If we look at the FA Cup final, which we unfortunately lost, as soon as Man United got the second goal, the first thing he did was do a couple step overs and blast the ball into space, trying to have an effort on goal, because he's desperate to make these things happen, but he just doesn't think at certain points, and it gets him in. And it just, I can't really, how would I put it? He just doesn't think like a footballer at certain points with the ball.
His decision making?
Yes, that's it. Sorry.
That's fine.
I know.
Just steps in with some eloquence to help him out there. Perfect.
Yeah, he doesn't have the best decision making.
Also, another thing I'd like to say is when Loftus-Cheek was on the pitch, because of Loftus-Cheek's skills, teams had to recognise that and put players around Loftus-Cheek, which created space for Wilf, so every team couldn't just triple mark Wilf and make us ineffective, because us as a team are very two-dimensional in how we attack. With Loftus-Cheek, we actually have a bit more to us, which means the defense gets spread because they can't just go stick everyone on Wilf and they can't do anything.
I do like to be the one that comes up with the most salient and enlightened points, but I think you're absolutely right. I think Loftus-Cheek just offers something different. It's a plan B without having to make a substitution. It's a plan B without having to shift the formation. He just offers something different because he can switch it up. I feel it's time that we get on to the...
I want to interrupt.
Go on.
I want to interrupt. It's the last one. I swear it's the last one. Fosu-Mensah. Ward needs to come in as soon as possible for him, because I feel like Fosu-Mensah's positioning has been incredibly poor.
It's been getting worse with every game.
It has.
I can agree with you that. At the start, when he had just come in, it was great. It was fine. He did everything he needed to do. But every game since, he's just drifting and drifting.
An example is they had a cross from the right wing, West Ham. And Fosu-Mensah was in the middle of the box, right next to Tompkins. And in the end, it was Townsend who had to clear the cross and header it away, which, Fosu-Mensah should have been the one that was there. And it's frequently as well, when you're looking at them coming down the left wing, Fosu-Mensah is so far off his man. He's just giving him so much space. And they can do whatever they want.
I think, sorry, just to interrupt, I think we have to remember that Timothy's only 20 years old and he's playing regularly in the Crystal Palace side, and he's only going to get better and pick up more things as he progresses, as he gets older.
Yeah, and he smiles like the fucking... When I see his face, my heart gets a little bit warmer. So I think what we can agree on is Alex can fuck off about because
I'm fine with that.
He's basically the Ronaldinho of right backs. He's smiley. I don't know, Alex, if you're one of those people, and you're welcome to chime in and tell us. I'm never that struck on Joel Ward. He's perfectly serviceable, and he does a really good job sometimes, but he's the Hennessy of right backs. He's got a mistake in him.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. Ward is not that great, and earlier on in the season, I was perfectly fine with him not playing and Fosu-Mensah coming in. It's just recently with Fosu-Mensah's performance again, positioning and all that lot. I feel like with his upcoming games, we need someone with a bit more experience, someone who can take on Chelsea and Spurs and so on. And again, just that experience will help us a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. We do, we have to respect the point of every game. I think it's time to talk about the transfer window. I think it's time to talk about the. I want to put this in context for all of you. I think Roy said at the start of the window that we needed 3 or 4 players. I believe we've got 3.5. I say the half because by all accounts we've signed a player that we're going to get on August the 1st or July the 1st. I think this transfer window is probably a success. We got the Alexander Sorloth, I don't know if he's top scorer, but he's scored 10 in the Danish league.
With 9 assists.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. With 9
15 he scored.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't including all his Europa Cup. I was prick teasing. It's what they call it in the trade as you build up slowly. Literally, you're straight in there, just smashing it all over my face. Yeah.
Oh, kinky.
You love it.
He's got 10 in the league, 1 in the cup, and 4 in Europe. Grand total of 15 with his 9 assists. The man is awesome. He speaks better English than I do, and he was born to head the ball, wasn't he? I mean, let's be honest.
He's also massive.
6'5". 4.
4.
Now I don't want to.
Can run really fast.
Yeah, I was just going to say I don't want to measure the 100 meters in terms that none of us can understand in terms of seconds. He's like an 82 pace on FIFA. That's what we all understand.
82 sprint speed.
Yeah, he's fast. Have any of you seen his goals from the Norwegian or the Danish league?
Yeah, they're decent goals. But he's done well to finish some of them, and his positioning is pretty good. But also, you got to admit the defending in that league is somewhat poor.
Yeah, he's not going to have the time or space that he's got there in this league. But he is left-footed, so maybe we have a Sacco replacement.
I think he can use his right foot as well.
I think he can, but
Well, is it cut off?
Well,
shall I rephrase it?
Yeah.
I think he's fairly decent with his right foot.
There we go.
Yeah.
Happy?
Patrick Van Arnholt has a right foot. I think he just uses it for accelerating.
He doesn't even have a left foot. Why are we talking about his right?
We didn't need any left backs. Anyway, back to the success that was the window.
Well,
go on.
I was saying before the pod, this window, under any other circumstances, would have been considered a success, but only due to our current injuries. I can't really call it a success because the squad just looks too weak right now. I'd say we need another couple just to tide over the squad weaknesses due to these injuries. Because we're playing an entire second-string defence, game in, game out. In the Premier League, that's very dangerous, and if any one of the defense, if Kelly or Tompkins get injured now, thankfully Sacco's back, but it's going to be a massive blow.
The reason why we're saying Jach, or whatever his name is, the Polish guy, the defender.
He does have what can only be charitably described as a comb-over Mohican, which is unusual. He looks quite hard. He does look quite hard.
He looks like a Polish Delaney in a way.
That's exactly, yeah. I was trying to find a polite way of saying exactly that. My fear, and we've bigged up the transfer window, and it's a success because Roy wanted 3 players, and he got 3. And I think you've only got to have, taken a breath of air in the last 24 hours, anywhere near the subreddit, the Discord, or Twitter, to see that most Palace fans are somewhat disappointed, through to those calling for the head of Steve Parish to be placed on a pike outside Sainsbury's.
One thing I will say is I feel really bad for Renault. Because that's the second transfer window in a row that we've done that to the per man. And this time he even said he was prepared for it. He was ready. He accepted the offer, but he was ready for it to be turned down. Because he just knew that we'd just done the exact same thing to him again. He said he'd been more prepared because he'd already had to go through it before. He couldn't really just go into a corner and cry and curl up, which is really depressing.
Well, the good news is he's clearly open to a third. I don't think you're wrong, and I we're talking about this as if it's as if we're all happy about it. But I do
not.
think. Well, hang on. But I'll give you plenty of time to tell us that you're not. But I think the reality of this window, and to your point of a moment ago, that it would have been a good window if certain things had changed. I think you can outline the failure of this window, and I'm calling it a failure without really putting that into context. This window will be a success if we stay up, because we haven't overspent. We've not gone out and spunk 30 million on someone that we maybe didn't need, because we've got a 30 million striker. He did score earlier in the week. He just needs to keep doing that. We have a 30 million pound defender who is just about to come back. We just need him to do, less getting broken and less of those back heels in the box. And then I think the other thing that's on a knife edge for most fans, and this is something that perhaps Dougie, Parish, Roy, I can't remember is it Alexander, somebody, the
Phil Alexander.
Thank you, Phil Alexander. I think they're going to be more aware of what our signings offer us than we are. At the moment, they all look like championship signings. And I think where we were in for Hugil, and potentially we were in for other kind of big names in the championship that we'd recognised, we'd have accepted that as, if so-and-so is the best player in the championship, a top goal scorer, a top assist creator, then you can understand why our board, our transfer team have gone for those players. The problem is, out of the 3 signings we've made, maybe one person on the sub has heard of them before. I'd not heard of Thingy Rakip. I'd not heard of Comb Over Man. I'd not heard of Alex Sorloth.
Well, I think that just speaks to how much our scouting has improved, because Parish was saying that we'd improved our scouts immensely, and if they're able to pick up people like these and get deals like this, because we couldn't go on spending the way we have done in the previous few windows. We need something like this just to get players in, give depth, and potentially find someone good.
Build for the future.
Yeah. And
as
they're all
their
young.
ages are young. Yeah. That's it.
So I think, for me, I think if these players can perform in the short periods that they're going to be required until our first team players come back, then it's a success. I think, and we can talk through player by player. None of them have played for us yet, so it's going to be really hard to analyse them. I think Neocast's point around the disappointment is probably where we're going to head next, and I'm kind of interested in, Panda. You spent a lot of time convincing us that you knew more than the rest of us.
Sherla.
Hang on. Is this an exposing Panda podcast here, or are we talking about
No.
Yes.
But we've got to put our disappointment somewhere. We've got to direct our blame, and we've just absolved Crystal Palace of any blame.
So prepare yourself.
Why don't we blame it on the fact that our chairman decided to make a bid for a goalkeeper? With minutes left of the window again?
I tell you what, I think let me rephrase the point. We're all, to a degree, satisfied with the transfer window if the signings we've made turn out to be the signings we needed. But there are clearly failures. Does anybody satisfied with the timings of our signings? Let's forget the signings we didn't do. Is anybody satisfied with the timings of the signings we made throughout the entire window? Alex?
I'm all right with the first 2. I think the first 2 are decent in terms of timings. Sorloth, I mean, the rumours have been around for quite a while, for about a week or so, was it? And we're after him. I think leaving it until literally after the deadline closes is a bit late. Yeah.
With the injuries we've had, just this window, if this window had been December, I think it would have been fine. It's just the injuries right now are just such a worry for everyone, I'd say. But the timings were, as Alex said, okay for the first two. We probably should have gotten Sorloth a bit earlier than after the deadline.
To be fair, you could have said that about a few of the signings. Ibrahim Amadou, we were linked with him from the very first day of the transfer window, weren't we, in January? And we started speaking to Leo, 4 hours before the window was about to shut? I think that is the most frustrating aspect, is the time we're leaving it so late to negotiate with clubs. Steve Parish talked about in a podcast where, if you go in straight away, you're not going to get the best prices, etc., etc. But when is it normal? Is it healthy to be leaving it this late? Because I don't think it is, but some might have other opinions on it.
I think when you look at the big clubs, let's take Sanchez as an example, and it is only one example. But there are other big name signings that have changed hands. And there are those that flow like dominoes after Sanchez, like the Aubameyang, Giroud, Mickey Batshit. I think that the reality for me is clearly we've done our homework to find the players before the window. For some reason, we seem unable to have secured deals before the window. The way that the club talk about it, it's as if they don't want to be at risk of overpaying, which is an understandable concern. But we seem to, on that final day, end up overpaying because the risk is you end up with no one. And someone is better than no one, so the transfer you've identified. Now, on the Amadou point, it leads me to 2 points. One, because I like the sound of my own voice, I'm going to talk about it. And the second is a kind of question for the group. The Amadou thing, we've bought players from Lille before. We've bought Soiree. So to a degree, Steve Parish has some kind of relationship with Lille. Lille are also in a strange position because of their FFP. And Lille have also come out and said that they're not going to sell Amadou. Now,
it was the chairman of Lille, not the club. Apparently, the coach was okay for him to go.
Yeah.
The issue was the chairman at the very start of the day came out and said, we're not selling anyone. And then they couldn't get rid of him, even though he got a train up to London. Even though everyone in the club was okay with him going, the chairman just said no. And it just didn't happen.
I can't believe I look at Steve Parish as it's kind of twofold. Steve Parish is a smart guy who I respect for his dealings in business. And I then look at Steve Parish as someone who, if any of us won the lottery to the tune of hundreds of millions, I mean, we were super lucky. Not many of us in the real life, we'd say it here, oh yeah, fucking hell, I'd buy Palace. You wouldn't, because none of your advisors would tell you to buy a football club. Every single advisor would tell you that's a fucking stupid mistake. It's like an airline. How do you make $1 million? Well, you start with $1 billion and buy an airline. Steve Parish, after what happened to Goldberg and what happened to Jordan, forgiving the permatan, the future of Crystal Palace has been saved by him and his friends, his rich buddies. And I look now at the decisions they've taken, and I find it really hard to look at Steve Parish as someone who doesn't learn from his mistakes and someone who doesn't want to do the best for himself and the club. So I look at the Amadou deal as someone's come out from the club, regardless of who it is, and said, we're not selling him. So Palace have put in their best bid and kind of left it alone. I'm not looking that Amadou comes to London because Palace tell him to, or even for that matter, West Ham. He comes to Palace because I suspect his agent is agitating for the transfer. And if Palace is sensible, they give him a medical. Because
Which we did.
Well, I don't think we ever came out and said we did. But I can see the logic in giving him a medical, because if at the 11th hour they change their mind, you don't want to be the club who can't quickly arrange a medical. So that seems logical enough. I don't buy anyone saying that we did it to try and outsmart West Ham.
I don't like that. I don't think that's true.
No, the only bit that gives me a little bit of hesitancy to be quite so dismissive of that is I do think we bid 31 million for Batshuayi because it helped us get Mandanda. There's no way in the world we would have bid 31 million for Batshuayi, particularly when you listen to Steve Parish talk about how Josh Harris and the other American guy whose name I forget, Blitzer, or I don't know. Thank you.
Blitzer.
Yeah.
They loved Benteke. They'd done due diligence on Aston Villa. They really liked Benteke. They were clearly all up for spending that money on Benteke. That doesn't then ring true that they would spend 31 million on Batshuayi maybe being good enough at Marseille. So I think we did that to help us get Mandanda. And I think also for all the people agitating about why we didn't pay more money for, and I'm going to say Guaita, I have no idea how you say that name, but we paid $1 million for Steve Mandanda when we didn't need to. But we did it because we were worried about losing him. And we wanted to be the people that did sign Mandanda. I think in this window where we've been late to the party, and as Newcastle mentioned, the Rano, or is that his name? The goalie from Bromby.
Rano.
Yeah, it's massively. We're not helping ourselves with transfers in the future with Bromby. We're clearly not helping ourselves with a chap who's willing to be a goalie at Palace. And we're making ourselves look a little bit stupid. I'm interested. So we've talked about, you guys aren't particularly thrilled with the timing. Are you satisfied that Palace are trying to get the right people?
I think we have spread our net far and wide, as something we picked up on earlier. We've invested in our scouting network. Like, we signed these players that we've never heard of, household names, if you like. But I think the problem with the frustration I have with the transfer window is when you're ending the window with two goalkeepers and the names are Julian Speroni and Wayne Hennessy. They're just, when I look at them, they're just not Premier League standard goalkeepers, if you like. That the goalkeeper position should have been one of the first ones we went in for in January, but it's just frustrating, seeing the club leave it to the last minute, which means Brøndby couldn't get a replacement in. So they had to turn on a deal. Like I said, it's just incredibly frustrating.
One thing I will say is, if we had got Renault, I don't know which, had come in, or we had got Gaeta, I would have been perfectly happy. I would have been over the moon with this transfer window, because we'd got depth, we'd got everything we wanted. Amadou would have been a luxury. It would have been great if we got him, but I'm not too fussed if we didn't. It's something we'll need to sort out in the future, hopefully in summer, because we do need a second DM. But if we got a keeper, I would have been completely happy with this window.
I agree. I fully agree. You just cannot go into a season with Wayne Hennessy and Julian Speroni. I know we love Speroni for all he's done.
But he's 38.
Yeah. You have to factor in his age. He makes everyone makes mistakes, but his age is getting to him. Wayne Hennessy is just a complete joke and farce of a goalkeeper. But it's just frustrating. We've had this for 2 years now of Wayne Hennessy as starter. We don't do this easy, do we?
I feel like this window was mainly for us to bring in young talent for the future, preparing for the end of the season where we have various contracts ending, such as Hennessy, such as Speroni, both out of contract. You look at the players who brought in who are young, 21 for Erdal Rakip, 23 for Yaroslav Yak, and 22 for Sorlot. Again, Amadou as well. We were looking to loan him and buy him in the summer, similar to what we're probably going to do with Verdo Rakip. Amadou's about 25 as well. Look at Ronau, where his name is. He's about 25 as well. So it seems we're gearing up for the older players of our squad to leave us and bring in and prepare for the future. That's what I see this window as anyway.
Some would say finally, because we've been harbouring a lot of old dogs for too long. Demo, he's been out of it for a few years now. He should not be at our standard. Like, don't get me wrong, I respect Demo and I really like Demo for everything he's done for the club, but why is he still here?
We actually gave him a 1-year contract extension for some reason. Parrish said it. I don't know why.
Parrish said it was because he had a massive influence in the dressing room. Make of that as you will.
It's understandable, but it depends what wages he's on as well, really.
Yeah, but when's enough in that sort of sense?
I think
when players have passed it, and we're giving them contracts, it's like, why?
I tell you the one thing that I think affects this, and I think has affected a lot of the reasons why we're entering the final stretch of a season where we've got some of our bigger names, our starters, running out of contract is perhaps because in the last how far back do we go? Let's go back to Pardew. If you go back to Pardew, Big Sam, Frank, now Roy, we've gone through 4 managers around a year, and each time, if you're Steve Parrish, you get caned if you put those players on a 3-year, 5-year, 2-year contracts extension without having a manager that agrees. And the flip side of that is, if you've got a manager like Big Sam, who, Steve Parrish talks about the meeting that he was expecting with Big Sam was to talk about transfer targets, contracts, all that kind of stuff. And Sam turns up and says, "Oh, by the way, I'm leaving." I think that's some of the reasons for the situation we find ourselves in. But I don't disagree. I do slightly have a problem with people saying that we haven't got enough cover for the goalie. I don't disagree. I think Speroni's decent cover. I think Hennessy, we all know he's not a good enough starter. If he could play like he does for Wales, we'd all be happy. But my problem is that we've got 2 cover goalies. We don't have a Mandanda. We don't have a Buffon, but do you know what I mean? We don't have a Nigel Martin. That is our absolute kind of solid gold number 1. I'm not too disappointed because we seem to have one for the summer, and I don't think that Speroni or Hennessy are going to be enough to relegate us on their own. But
we do have a pre-contract with Gaeta, I believe. So as soon as the summer window starts,
I hope so. I hope we're not there trying to scrabble around and fight. August the 31st, trying to get that poor lad from Bromby again. But I think for me that the final point we've talked about, the timings, is I would much prefer to see us do our business, pay a 10%, even 15, 20% premium to sign the players we want at the start of the window, and they'd have been in our squad now for a month longer. But anyway, that's enough about transfers.
Can I actually interrupt with the worthy point? Trust me. We have, I wrote it down actually, give me 1 second. We have 11 players, possibly 12, including the loans, that could leave us this summer due to expiring contracts. That's 11 out of 28, or 12 out of 28, again, depending on the loans. So do you lot think we're going to give Martin Kelly a new contract, Hennessy, Speroni, Bakary Sacco, because he's going to be out of contract as well, Chung Yong Lee?
I think we're going to give Martin Kelly a new contract. I think particularly with Roy being at Palace. I think Bakary Sacco might get a new contract. But I think if you're Bakary Sacco, you probably want to transfer massive, nice fee to re-sign or to sign a new contract somewhere. I think the Chun Yong Lee and people like that are, I suspect Steve Parish has probably already got someone in mind to clean out their lockers.
Well, he was already going to go on loan on the last day. It's only because Saka got injured that Lee wasn't going to go on loan. So I assume he will be gone in the summer. There's also two other biggish names. Kabai is out of contract as well, and so is MacArthur.
I think the problem with these players is, do we have the budget to replace them in the summer? If that makes sense. We're talking about losing, 5 or 6 players here?
11.
Oh, okay. 11 players. Do we have the budget to replace 11 players?
Yeah, I think we do.
I'm not saying we're a small club, but the financial aspects of it, will we be breaking the financial fair play rule?
I believe if we're able to get deals like we did with Yak in this window, basically, because this has been our cheapest window for how long? Too long, basically. I think with this window, we've saved up a lot of money. I think this summer is going to be a big one, and it will need to be with how many people are out of contract. We're either going to have to re-sign them, give them new contracts, or we buy a lot of players, and a lot of cheap players.
I think that's what it will be. I think it'll be young and cheap, similar to what we've just done in the window. Hopefully our scouting network will be good enough for various positions, such as wingers, because we do need wingers, as well as to replace people like Kabai and MacArthur. Possibly right back as well, seeing both are out contract.
No, I think Joel Ward's leaving. I know he turned down a new contract offer at the beginning of the season.
Is that official that he turned it down, or somewhat?
No, it was reported in the news.
I saw that reported as well, that we had offered a contract, but he had turned it down.
I think that the not that we need to draw this to a close, but I think there are players we want to re-sign, either as starters or squad players, and I think you'd put MacArthur and Joel Ward in there. I think there's players like Kabai on big wages that we probably don't want to re-sign. He's done a really good job for us for 3 years, but I think probably for the most part, agree. Now have somebody else handsome so he can go.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's still on with us until 2019.
Thank you for reminding us. God damn it!
No problem.
I have a controversial opinion to finish this on. Would you re-sign Hennessy?
What?
No.
Yeah, depending.
Well, it depends. If Speroni retires and we don't get more than one keeper next summer, yes.
See, that's exactly why, for me, you re-sign Hennessy, because he's the Fraser Campbell of this. Quite happy just sat around doing fuck all.
No, I think he'd want game time. I think he'd want quite a lot of game time. And I think
because he is the Welsh number one. He'll want to stay in the team.
Yeah, he'll want to play. He'll need to play. And I don't think he'd get that here if we do sign Gator, whatever his name is. And I think we could sign certainly one or two more keepers after this pre-contract Gator. So I don't think Hennessy would be needed, really.
I'm happy to talk about West Ham now. I'm sorry, not West Ham, Newcastle. But Alex, I'm sure you've got more points that you want to talk about.
No, I'm done now.
One final thing. Sorry, I'm doing an Alex. To sum up this transfer window in an analogy, it was like the West Ham game. Started off, we weren't really looking forward to it. We were a bit angry. Middle, absolutely amazing. And then it just tailed off. And we just left disappointed and just meh.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think Steve Parish probably left both the game and the transfer window equally deflated.
Yes.
So, Newcastle, we haven't talked about their transfer window. They signed a player who I would have fucking loved us to sign. He can't play. Yeah, Slimani is the one player who, at the time, I thought Benteke was exactly the right player for us. Slimani is the one player I would have taken. Anyway, we're not yet talking about Rafa, and I think that's really the only interesting thing to talk about. Everyone at Newcastle is going to be miserable because we're complaining about a transfer window. Newcastle, who, I mean, to be fair, I think Mike Ashley would have been set on fire, or bleach poured down his throat if they did nothing. So
They've only signed
the signing of Slimani, I think, is mainly to appease Geordies everywhere. But
They did sign another.
they signed a goalie, wasn't it?
They signed the goalkeeper. Yes, the
No, they signed Kennedy.
Oh yes, that's
yeah.
right.
I've
Kennedy
forgotten
from
about
Chelsea,
Mm.
who got them a penalty and the assist for the goal. Their last game against.
Yeah, he apparently played out of his mind
A
against
little
Burnley.
bit fearful for that, really, on Sunday.
Yeah.
Did Burnley break his leg?
Who?
I don't think so.
Kennedy.
We can only hope. I mean, granted, I wish I'd had the common sense to bring this up earlier. He's good because he's fast. If he's good at all, it's because he's fast. Luckily, we have the fastest, smiliest Dutchman in the world, who should be able to keep up with him. So,
Gosh.
In defensive.
yeah, exactly.
Unless Ward plays. If Ward
No
plays,
fucking way
then-
Ward's going to play, surely.
Yeah.
Fight.
Roy prefers Ward, and we've all seen Ward versus the fast winger. He gets absolutely destroyed. But that's the
Although
reason.
he did okay versus Sane. No.
Sane wasn't really about pace at that time, though, was he?
Yeah.
His push
But-
forward was a lot closer to Ward most of the time.
That's the reason why I prefer Timothy to certain clubs. If you've got direct wingers that will take on your man, I prefer Timothy purely for his pace. A quick pacey winger. Because we've all seen what happened when Ward goes ahead. He just gets destroyed, doesn't he? Ward looks like a player that has too much muscle. Like he just looks like a big henchman, and his pace he just gets done up. But his crossing is really good. I remember the goal versus Everton, or the assist versus Everton for Zaha. Played a beautiful ball across the face of goal for Zaha to score. But yeah, like I said, for me against Newcastle, TFM has to start. But it's up to Roy. We're not the manager.
Well, Rafa Benitez is known for how to drill teams. He's not perhaps the most management-minded chap. Steven Gerrard tells a great story about Rafa. They won like a game 3-0, comes off the pitch, and the first thing he says to Stevie G is like about one mistake that Stevie G made at 1 minute into the game, and everything else was perfect. I tend to think that somebody who prepares that much and is that neurotic is going to have Wilf in someone's pocket, or at least 3 people's pocket for the game. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I can see that happening. I can see him being marked out of the game.
Sounds so confident.
I don't. It's honestly difficult just after our recent form. I just don't quite know what's going to happen. Like, if Sahar's not on his game at all, then it's going to be a very difficult game for us because I don't see much creativity at all.
I think he'll be marked out because I know Rafa watches the other, seriously in depth watches the other team. So I think they'll mark him out of the game. So I agree. I don't feel confident going into this.
I think they'll mark him out of the game, not because they have to look at us, but because every team in the league marks Zaha out of the game.
Yeah.
It's not any special tactics. It's just a case of Zaha is that good, you have to mark him out of the game or just concede.
I think our set pieces will come back to bite
We
us.
have those?
Well, our defending set pieces, we're not exactly the greatest.
I was about to say, we can't deliver them for shit.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think every team now knows our weakness is Zaha and defending set pieces. And I don't know what they do on the training ground at Palace, but I really hope they would have sorted it out. But I genuinely can't remember the last time where I felt comfortable when we had a set piece to defend.
Under Pardew, before he turned to shit.
Oh, yeah. We were scoring those for fun, weren't we?
And we were defending them
Yeah.
like they were piss.
Yeah, but that was also Tony Pulis.
Tony-
that was
yeah, that's
that was
Tony.
massively
But
inherited.
the thing is
wasn't
even
it?
if you look at West Brom, it was inherited, but something Pardew does to his teams is if they've had a good person who regiments a team based on set pieces, which Pulis does, Pardew gets them in, and he just gets those teams scoring set pieces, because West Brom has started scoring set pieces out the ass now.
Let's assume that Roy has done for Palace what he did for England. Is he going to change who we put on corners so that we actually get the corner into the box?
We need to change who takes the corners.
Yes, we
It's
do.
so
We need-
terrible.
I think
we need to bring in someone
Actually,
who can take them, a set piece specialist. Because Kabay was supposed to be that, but
You can't do that anymore. All of his balls are so slow.
sorry.
Yeah, I knew as I said that. No, but seriously, if you look at his corners, for example, they just float in, and they barely go past the first man. I don't know if it's planned like that, if they try and hit the first man or what, I don't know, but it never goes past the first man, and if it does, it's too slow for any of our lot to get on the end of it, so the keeper comes and takes it easily, or the defender just clears it away. And we get so many corners that it's pointless, because it results in nothing.
I thought Luca took some decent corners.
After Luca's banger,
Luca's
do we not
been-
now want him on the edge of the box at all times?
Yes.
The corner thing and the free kick thing, any kind of dead ball thing, really has got on my tits this season, because it's the simplest thing. You just kick the ball forwards into that big.
Aim for Benteke's
Yeah.
fucking head, and he will be able to do something with it. And they never ever get it to Benteke.
Van Aanholt, I think, whenever he did corners, I can't remember, it might have been against Burnley, maybe. He seemed to do pretty good, pacey, somewhat accurate corners, which is something that Kabay hasn't done, or Townsend to an extent. So if possible, I'd like to see Van Aanholt do a few more, at least on the left wing.
So I think we're all agreed. Really, we need Jason Puncham back just for taking dead balls.
Fuck off!
Yes.
So
I will not accept that here,
Bro.
even in a joke capacity.
Embrace punching.
the
Great.
solution is known to all of us. We just don't know who it is. We just need Roy to realise what we're all realising, and any day of the week on the training ground, just let everyone keep taking corners until someone does it right, and then you pick them. I'd be happy if
In before it turns out Wayne Hennessy is a set piece
I'd
specialist.
be quite happy with
Oh,
Martin
for
Kelly
God's
taking
sake.
corners. At this point, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if we signed Harry Kane for 80 million just to take fucking corners. At this point, it's
I would be more than happy signing Harry Kane.
yeah, but you'd then complain if you took the corners, wouldn't you?
No, we've
Exactly.
Benteke.
Exactly.
A strike partnership of Kane and Benteke.
I do hope it would. I don't buy into the Roy ruined England thing. I would fucking love it if we signed a centre forward
No.
and got Alex Orlott taking the corners on Sunday. That would be amazing. I'd be so happy. But okay, so beyond
But the memes that would come out
Yeah.
of it.
Oh my god.
the set pieces aside, do we have a chance going to Newcastle? Oh, I'm sorry, Newcastle coming to us. So that they're coming to, Selhurst, which is probably a good thing because our away form is not what it used to be. What's the result going to be? So, Panda, you've shat on everything so far. Are you going to predict Newcastle win here?
Yes.
Wow.
I think it'll be 2-1 Newcastle.
It's been delightful having you on the podcast. I look forward to you never coming back, Alex.
Right. Alex, kick him.
What do you think, Alex? What's the result going to be?
I think it'll be 1-1, but I could see it going 2-1 either way.
Oh, kick him
Like
as well.
probably late on in the game.
Okay, respect the point. Neocas?
I agree with Alex. It's most likely it's going to be another dull 1-1. I think Newcastle are going to score first, but I could see it going 2-1 either way.
Okay. I think we're going to score 3. And I'm going to put a goal down for our man from Midtjylland. I think Alex Orlott's going to come on in the second half and get a goal. And I tend to think we're going to have a goal from a set piece. Newcastle have been pretty poor at defending them I think we can see a goal from a set piece. I'm going to go James Tompkins header.
He's got a good record, hasn't he, from the set pieces?
I like Tompkins, and I think because Sacco's not going to be scoring a lot of headers from corners if he starts. Martin Kelly.
Well, if the ball drops to him in the box, he knows how to bang them in that way. Sacco has a goal.
Scored. Yeah, that's how he scored one of his goals earlier on.
But I look at Tompkins as our non-Benteke battering ram. But I'm going for
Basically, we've just removed the goal machine from Dan's title and put it next to Tompkins now.
Yeah, that's where I'm with this. I think I'm going to go Patrick Van Arnholt goal, Sorloth goal, Tompkins goal.
Ooh.
Patrick Van Arnholt because he's an ex-Sunderland player, and I suspect he'll be up for it. And I'm going to say Hennessy starts in goal, and the Newcastle goal comes from a Hennessy error.
What way he comes for a ball and then doesn't actually go for it?
Is Dwight Gale fit? Dwight Gale's going to score if he plays. Yeah, so I think Hennessy.
Yeah, they've only
Hennessy
got 3
fumbles
injuries.
the ball to Gale, and it's a goal. That's and
I actually think the Newcastle goal will come from a set piece, which is kicked into the net by one of our own players.
Oh yeah, Erdal Rakip sending out a cry for help to Benfica, having only been here a week. Get me the fuck out of it.
Take me back.
She said this was London.
What is this?
Yeah, they got me in a bed sit in Bromley. What's going on?
I do want to ask you, D-Stock, do you think then Surlot will start on the bench or be on the bench for the game or not?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to start on the bench. He's just come out of a summer training camp, or like a winter training camp. He's fit. He's not going to be match fit. I reckon Roy doesn't like substitutions, but he also, I think, has a problem with some of our players like Benteke and Kabaye who just aren't mobile for 90 minutes. So I think you'll see Sorloth come on 60, 70 minutes, and I think you'll see if Kabaye starts, I think you'll see if we're winning, you might see Riedewald come on. If the game's balanced or Newcastle are winning, I think you'll see maybe even Chungy come on. I think you'll see some kind of he doesn't do the Pardew. He doesn't bring on someone way out of left field in the hope they change the game. Before he was doing that with Sacco for a little while, but
he did that with PVA as well. When we had Schlupp put PVA out on the left wing.
I could see. Is Schlupp back or is he out for? He's out for a little while, isn't he?
He's out for another month.
He's out for.
Yeah, I miss him. He really got that left back position nailed down. He was doing really well.
I disagree, but I'm not going to.
I disagree.
Really?
I think he's better at defending than attacking, whereas
uses are both. But don't get into it.
No.
Whereas I find PVA is more of a winger, isn't he?
He's more of a wing back.
Yeah, wing back, attacking wing back rather than Football Manager talk. Yeah, but anyway. But yeah, I just think he's a better attacker than Schlupp, whereas Schlupp's better defensive.
I think what you were all saying about TFM earlier, how his positioning's got worse and worse by the game. I think old Jeffrey has improved week by week, and whether that's Roy shouting at him, whether that's Scott Dan Tompkins, whoever it was shouting at him, he played so well during November, December that we looked lost, and I was starting to call for Soiree to get a start, but no, I was quite happy with Schlupp.
I can agree with that his position did improve. It's one of the things that did annoy me early on in the season for sure. He was always out of position, and the fans gave him abuse for it constantly as well. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it has improved immensely under Roy. However, I still prefer PVA to him.
I agree.
Okay, I think we.
No, before you think.
As is now tradition.
Alex, do you have any more points? No.
I do have a point. Who do you think will replace Sacco this game?
I think we're going to start with an extra midfielder in a 4-4-2. I
Yeah.
don't think we'll be in a 4-4-3. Sorry, 4-3-3 rather. I think in the future we may see a 4-3-3 with Townsend and Wilf, depending on what Roy chooses to do with our other midfielders. There's no way someone like Chung is going into the starting lineup. We've let Kai go. Roy didn't appear to fancy him. Kirby isn't ready. The creativity going forwards without Loftus-Cheek isn't there. We don't have punch.
Basically,
So
thanks to all of our injuries, there's no guessing the lineup just because we're so lost as to depth and just who will play where. You can't really say a predictive lineup because it's never going to be what you think it's going to be.
Speaking of injuries, isn't Townsend injured? Didn't he come off against West Ham injured, holding his foot?
He was on the pitch. He was injured for, I don't know, he kind of was on the pitch rolling about a bit and got up. No one after the game mentions anything really about him being injured. Roy's press conference is tomorrow, so I assume we'll get an update then. But I think he might be fine. It might have just been a little knock or
in before
back.
ACL.
No, don't do this to us.
Nah, I think he cramped or something like that.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't think he was he was dead in a way that we were.
Oh, thank God for that.
But yeah, I'd be interested to see if Rakip gets on the bench. I'd be interested to see if Yarek gets on the bench. I'd almost, but I think we're not far from playing Sacco in the middle of the pitch. Maybe he's going to pull some of the young lads out of the under 23s. Someone like Kirby, who might have the chance of unlocking the defence, but I don't think
all the decent under 23. Well, I say decent. All the ones that Frank de Boer used, such as Lakilo. I can't remember the other one's name, but they've gone out on loan.
Lumika, Kashi Anderson.
Those lot. Kashi Anderson's been sold, I think.
Yeah.
Sold?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dapo's been sold. Kai-Kai's obviously out on loan, as you mentioned before. Lakilo's now out on loan as well. So all the ones who could have come on and come on the bench and could have actually possibly come on for the last 15, 20 minutes or so, they're now out on loan. So
I think, have we still got Lameka or Lameka? I don't think he went out.
The kilo's still here. I know that.
Ignore part of my point.
I don't think your point is that Roy hasn't picked them at all. And when he did put Kai on the bench, he's never brought him on. Maybe he brought him on against Brighton, and he looked appalling. So I don't. Your original question was how we're going to line up. Newcastle said it's hard to predict. I think that it entirely is hard to predict. I think the one thing that we can kind of nail down is we are short of wingers and short of attacking players with any kind of flair.
We're short of everything.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to sign, and I'm going back to free transfers or going back to transfer window, do we think anyone free transfers? Are we going to, do what was...
No, probably not.
The only free transfer I can think of us doing is the goalkeeper.
These dogs talked about free agents.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
we've got up to a squad of 25. I think we've only got 22. So we've got spaces. Ben Watson was talked about yesterday.
Yeah, he got released.
He did, because he was going to go to Forest on loan, and he got released by Watford.
Wow.
I think that was as a favour from Watford. He's been there on the bench for a year or two.
A bit like when Andy Johnson came back to us. Although again, he didn't really ruin anything, but he did come back to us, not play very well, and then buggered off.
Yeah, exactly. And I tend to, I'm not sure who else is on the free transfer list that we'd really want to look at. I think most of those that were probably went.
Samir Nasri?
I couldn't imagine someone.
Bakary Sanya?
I thought Bakary Sanya got signed up somewhere.
According to transfermarket.com, he is a free agent.
I'd take Bakary Sanya, for squad depth. That year that we signed Flamini, things like that. I think there are There's always someone you can take and do something with. But
Coincidence? Flamini's free agent.
No, he isn't.
Pretty sure club signed him off already.
Really?
Yeah, no, someone signed him.
Yeah, like yesterday, the day before.
Oh, transfer market
Yeah.
lies.
but
On the transfer market, he's a
the
free agent.
Wikipedia of
Getafe.
those fuckers, they could have played him in goal. Well, I think we're wrapped up here, chaps. Unless Alex, I'd hate to break with tradition and suggest you haven't
Has
got a point.
another point.
No, I'm all done.
I'm feeling right.
I think.